Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today on a Saturday that too. And I'm grateful to Khaki for letting me present on a topic that has been very dear to me and one of the reasons why I chose to specialize in this field. So let's jump straight in to one of these questions that I've always wanted to, know more about. What makes us human? This is a question that we as archaeologists, anthropologists, geneticists, anybody studying evolutionary studies um, asks. Like, was it a moment that shaped us, or were there myriad of factors leading or continue to frame what makes us human? Now, take for instance this product of modern human ingenuity, which is a smartphone. Now, some of us feel like we can't do without it. Some of us, not all of us, and we feel like this phone is an extension of our body. But had it not been for this stone tool made 250,000 years ago and the many more that came before it, our present day today would be very different, in my opinion. Now, stone tools are one of the most enduring records of human prehistory, albeit just one of the many factors that can help us understand it. But I want to hark on its value as being the most powerful record of human evolution because of its enduring nature. Now, as we go through this presentation today and our journey into our deep prehistory, I want you to leave with the fact that when you see the stone tool now, as opposed to at the end of the presentation, that it would reveal much more to you than just a end product. This stone tool in front of me reveals so much about cognition, behavior, the environment it was made in, how it was a chronological marker amongst the so many reasons. Now, today's presentation is about us, right? Homo sapiens. And we are right here on the top right corner. As you can see, 7 million years have preceded us. And so we just didn't appear in the evolutionary history. And there's a lot that went on before we appeared. So for today's presentation, we just be discussing the last 3 million years and just about. We'll be touching upon key milestones in our journey to where we are today and to understand how we came about. And we want to understand if there are certain factors that shaped us. And speaking of shaping, the one question that you must ask is that the stone technology that we'll talk about today, was it novel to humans? Did we make it, or was there some other key player involved? So, primate archaeologists are studying three types of non human primates: chimpanzees, the long tailed macaques, and bearded capuchins. Now, although the prehistory of there or the stone age that they are in doesn't exceed beyond 4,000 years, it shows that they are using tools. And they're using tools as percussive instruments. So they're using this big rock, as you can see in the image, and using it to crush seeds and nuts. So our question would be, do we share some cultural traits with them? And are we using the raw material as they are? And also, we need to assess, is it just about picking up a stone and crushing a nut? Or is it about understanding what that stone is like? How heavy is it? Understanding the raw material, transporting it to where your collection of seeds are, and then making an activity area, and then finally getting to business. So, I would like to show you this cute video of these macaques in Thailand.
The coastline presents a rich opportunity for creatures with the intelligence to exploit it. With the help of a sharp rock, barnacles, make a good meal.
So here you see they're using a stone and they're crushing barnacles to get the flesh out. So if perhaps if we share these traits with them, because we are also using stone tools, are we making the same kind of tools? So in the 1960s, Lewis and Mary Leakey, they discovered this hominin fossil, okay, the skull over here, fragments of the skull. And eventually it came to be known as Homo habilis. Homo of our genus, and habilis is a Latin term. It means skillful, but eventually it came to be known as handyman. So Homo habilis is the handyman of our genus. And the fragments of the fossils of Homo habilis at some sites were found with stone tools. And they were in the sediments associated with stone tools. So it wasn't a wrong assumption. They assumed that this hominin species made the stone tools. And the age bracket for this is around 2 million years to 1.5 million years, give or take. Now, compared to the preceding genus of Australopithecines, they are much smaller, right? The stature is small. They're just 100 and 130 centimeters tall. They have a small jaw. The teeth are very small, but their brain capacity had increased as compared to the Australopithecines. So, two key questions arise, or should come to your mind if you see this map. Yes, Homo habilis was here in Africa, but there were other species as well, not just Homo, but Australopithecines at the same time. And the second thing is, are we making the same tools as as our cousins? Because the non-human primates were definitely using a tool, but were they modifying, right? Were they using it, pre-planning ahead and giving shape to the artifact? So for a very long time, it was thought that the tools made by this hominin species, and I'll come to what technology it was associated just with our genus and could make stone tools before them. And a key question to remember here is what is stone tool napping, and when you make a stone tool, it is the manipulation of that stone, but you're not just modifying it, but you are consistently thinking of a shape to give to it and use it. So that becomes a deliberation. So we thought it was our genus that made stone tools. And then in 2015, Hamand et al. Published this miraculous find of a stone tool technology that predated our genus and was dated to more than 3.3 million years. And it also predated the oldest technology that we knew of. So I should mention here that it is highly probable that technology made of tools made out of, say, organic material, say wood, right? It is possible that it was contemporary to lithic technology or even older. As of now, we don't have evidence for bone or wood technology predating this. It's possible that we might find it. So before I explain what these stone tools are and how they were made, let's understand a little bit about stone tool technology, how we make it. And to make stone tools, we call it knapping. Knapping with a K. And knapping is just a process of modifying stone through a series of steps. Now, this is a very simplistic way of explaining what stone tool knapping is. And as archaeologists and prehistorians, we sometimes adopt something called experimental knapping. So we experiment to understand what we are seeing on the site, just to understand how it was made. Now, here you see this rounded sort of a stone, right? This is called a hammer stone. And just like a hammer hits a nail, this hammer stone is going to hit this chunk of rock, which we call a core. Now, it doesn't matter if you retain the terminologies. The concept is very simple. This stone hits this big stone, and once it hits this core, we get some pieces out of it. And these pieces are called flakes. To make it even more simpler, like this green apple in front of you, suppose you take a bite out of it, the apple becomes a core, and the chunk you took out of it becomes a flake. And to get a flake out of a core, there are various techniques you can use. The concept is the same. You are trying to hit the core in a certain manner, whatever is easier to you, so that you can get a piece out of it. And that piece is the flake, as I mentioned. And these are certain features you would notice on a flake. And as archaeologists, we study these characteristics amongst many to understand how these were taken off. So, coming back to the tools from Lumequi, or the tools are now known as the Lumequian tools. What is fascinating about the tools are that they are made from very large cores. So in the diagram, you can see that most of them are bigger than 10 centimeters. So they're getting these huge cores and they're taking out chunks from it. Or the cores itself are large and the flakes also will be as large. And they're using the raw material that is locally available. But one of the raw materials that they used a lot was basalt. And basalt, if some of you know, is a very hard mineral. So kudos to them to be able to nap something that hard. And around the same time, they don't know who made it, but there are certain key contenders who could have made it. But at the site, they didn't find it. Nearby, they found some fossil remains. And as of now, it could be Kenyanthropus platyops, or another species of Paranthropus. Around this time, also, I should mention there's a site in Ethiopia called Dikika, and there they found cut marks on bones. So percussive and cut marks. So they were using stones to deflesh, animal bones. So, and that is dated a little beyond, around the same time in Ethiopia. Now, this video is there's Nicholas over here, a team member of the people who researched at Lumekwi, and he will show you one of these tools, cores.
All that's here. Yeah, all of this is the smooth outer surface of the artifact. And when I turn it round, you'll be able to see that it's completely different on the other side. So rather than being smooth here, it's got all these angular sort of fractures on this surface.
So you can see how they were, say, preferring a surface, say like this. They were preferring a flat surface. And from that one single surface, they were hitting and to get these long, big flakes. Now, before the discovery of the tools at Lamekwi, which was in 2015, it was assumed that the tools that were found here in the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania were the oldest type of tools known to mankind. But even though it was discovered in 1930s, and a lot of research has gone into understanding what the Oldowan tools are, recent research has pushed the dates back to 3 million years for the Oldowan, as opposed to 2.6. You can see how the Oldowan has, or this sort of technology has spread to different parts of the world. Now, the site that has pushed the date of the Oldowan back to, say, 2.83 million years is in Kenya. It's a site called NMT. And this site shows that this technology was used continuously for the next 300,000 years. Now, not only does that say that, it could say a few things. One, that the environment was stable enough for no change in technology, or even if it was unstable, the technology was so good that it was it was okay to deal with whatever problems came their way. Around the same time, we have evidence of these hominins, and there were multiple hominins at this time going out of Africa. So you have evidence from China now coming around more than 2 million years that these hominins have left Africa. So there are a couple of things happening around this time. So let's try and understand what this technology is. And we'll try and understand it from that site itself. If you look at this graph here on the left side, top left, the site I talked about before, Lomekwi, the tools are placed on the graph here, right, on the right side. Whereas all the artifacts of the Alduin technology of many sites, the early Paleolithic, say, they are all on the left side. They're concentrated. So clearly there's some sort of similarity, some pattern, whereas the Lomekwi is totally on the right side. So you know there's the difference. And the difference between these technologies are very apparent. Yes, they're also exploiting the locally available raw material, but you have a lot of tool types coming up or artifact types. So, of course, you have the core and you have the flake, but the flakes are also being made to have very sharp edges, or they're made retouch in the sense that shape, the edges are hit with a hammerstone to make it even stronger, and it becomes a tool. They're actually using it as a scraper, perhaps. And remember when I was saying there are many ways of making stone tools, those knapping techniques. So in Lumekwi, they were using a passive hammer technique, which is basically they're holding the core and they're hitting it on the anvil or something on the floor, on the ground. They've kept some big chunk and they're hitting it, or they're using another method of bipolar technique. In Alduin, because the cores are smaller than the Lomekwi, they're using the hammerstone in the hand, as it was shown in the image. And there are also some sites, like the NMT site in Kenya, where they show evidence of butchery. Now, there are bones of hippopotamus that have shown evidence of cut marks and some sort of percussion marks. So all this is going back to 3 million years, and Homo sapiens haven't arrived yet. So when it comes to India, or South Asia as an extension, do we find Alduin here? The thing is, we do and we don't. Now, there are some sites like in northern Pakistan of Rawat and Pabi Hills. There's one in Chandigarh called Masol. And they do have this evidence of a very early hominin dispersal from Africa to this area. But the context at which they found those artifacts and bones, etc., are little sketchy. So as of now, we don't. But who's to say that we'll never get it? There's always a chance. Around this time, and yes, it is not as old as 3 million years, but it is around the same trajectory of this sort of technology, Alduin technology, that there is another evidence of out of Africa hominin dispersal to Georgia. Now, why I wanted to talk about this site is because of all the fossils that they found, these hominin skulls, as you can see. And one particular skull I wanted to talk about was this one, this adult male Homo erectus, D3444. When they found the skull, they found both the skull and the mandible without any teeth. And this was a result of tooth loss or resorption, and several years before death, not just right before death. So it could imply a few things. Either this guy figured out how to, survive by eating really soft food, which at that time, little impossible because fire wasn't controlled yet to make things softer, if that's one way of doing it, right? So the other, and this is all conjecture, of course, the researchers say that themselves, that it's possible that the Dmanisi hominins, that's the name of the site, possibly helped him, survive as long as he could. So I think it's a behavioral trait, something that we have ingrained in us till date. So I think it's very fascinating to see that in an archaeological context. Now, before we go ahead, let's just recap as to where we are. Now, we are essentially studying the Paleolithic. and paleo is old, lithic is stone, right? So we're studying the old Stone Age, and for convenience sake, archaeologists have made divisions amongst it, within it, and we have three phases: the lower, middle, and upper Paleolithic. Uh, these are not arbitrary lines. Like with more research, the distinction between these phases, it's just getting fuzzy. I feel we should just let go of this. But it somehow does also make things efficient. So right now we are in the lower Paleolithic. And in terms of technology, Graham Clark came up with this classification of just the technology, nothing else, and it's called the mode classification. And why I prefer to use it, because it's specific. Yes, it is an umbrella term for a lot of things, but if you're using cultural nomenclatures, we can use this as well. So since Lomekwi or Lomekwian tools were found recently, it doesn't have a mode number. Maybe it's mode 0. And Alduin tools are mode 1 technology. Now succeeding this is the Acheulean. Now, as you can see, there are too many maps, right? That means now this technology has spread even further and wider. So you not only have it, of course, in Africa, some of the oldest dates for this technology come from Africa. But now you have sites in Europe, you have sites in Asia, Southeast Asia, as well as India. And as usual, there were a lot of contenders as to who made it. So let's go with the terminology first. What is Acheulean? Uh, Basically, there was a site, still a site in France called Saint Achille, and they found these artifacts like these over there. And so the terminology for that assemblage was Acheulean Acheulean technology, and the name stuck. Nothing to it. Now, what is the difference between, say, this technology and the preceding older one technology? Uh, Even if this technology has come into play, the preceding technology continues, right? So the cores, the flakes, the scrapers, all sorts of things still continue. The Acheulean technology kind of assimilates it, adopts it, but few new tool types have arisen within this technology. So you have these large cutting tools, and it means exactly that they're large and they're tools that cut things. And you have something called bifaces. Technically means two faces, and yes, most tools will have two faces. But the bifacial technique applied to make a tool would give you something like this tool over here. The teardrop shape that you see, that only comes because of this bifacial technique you apply. And this tool type came to be known as a handaxe. Now, I should say that handaxe and another type of biface cleavers, they form a very small proportion of the entire assemblage. But it was distinct enough to uh, be, portrayed as, something exclusive for the Acheulean. Let's try and understand about the technology a little further from this site called Adirampakkam in India. It is the oldest site in India. Although it was discovered in 1863, excavations have continued since the late 1990s. And the researchers there at Sharma Center, they have found this continuous sequence of habitation for the Acheulean. And they have been successful to date this site and the sediments where these artifacts were found to 1.5 and 1.7 million years. So you can see they have these handaxes, they have these cleavers, they have flakes. And what they found in this site was that they were using the locally available raw material. It wasn't as nearby, say, for the Alderman, but it was in the vicinity. It was called quartzite. And they also saw that they are trying to use a finer grained material. So they're making choices of the kind of raw material they want to nap. And there's so many things that they found, but these are just those, few instances that, stick. So they found that, as you can see the size here, again, larger than 10 centimeters, right? So to make something like this, they would also require a larger core. They didn't find those cores. So it's possible that those cores where they were quarrying for the raw material or, going for raw material acquisition. The cores are still there. They would flake out this large piece and then transport it to the site. And they have evidence that next step of manufacturing process where you shape the artifact happened on site because they have evidence of the small little pieces that come out of it. So Acheulean technology, of course, continues the legacy of the Ottoman technology, but we are definitely seeing this sort of mindset where they are making this mental template. They're foreseeing what they want to make, and they will select the raw material and make that. And this is just one aspect of the Acheulean tradition. We should also understand that at the same, like the Oldowan, there are multiple species, hominin species here. You have the Homo erectus, of course. Later on, you have the Heidelbergensis. Much later, you have the Neanderthals. So, and in some, there are regional species also like the Homo antecessor. So it is you have parallel evolution of tool technology, Oldowan being assimilated, Acheulean developing, or Oldowan persisting at some places in the world where Acheulean is not required. So this is happening where, as well as the evolution of humans is taking place in its own trajectory. A very fascinating study has been done where they are mapping the brain of these experimental nappers, right? So, to understand what happens when you are trying to make these stone tools or replicate stone tools to understand the prehistoric technology. So, they were doing this PET study, right? Positron emission tomography study. And they did that for Alduin also, and they did that for Acheulean. And both show that when you're making these stone tools, the to say it crudely, the language centers light up, right? So there is some sort of association with complex tool making to or decision making to language. And when they compared it to Aldovan versus a Acheulean experimental mapping, they found that it's higher for a Acheulean. So clearly, a Acheulean technology is a little more complex or requires something more than what Aldovan needed. Now, around the same time, we have this. Now, these are those milestones that I talked about. Um, this at around the same time of Acheulean technology, there's a site in Tanzania where they have found bone tool technology. Now, osseous or bone tool technology has been prevalent for more than 2 million years, but those are more about not manipulation as such. They had a role in insectivory, like they were using these long shaft bones or horn cores to forage termites. So they were just using the bone as is. Whereas here at this site, they have found actual evidence of manipulation and modification of the bone. And so understand this. Yes, they might be applying the same tool technology or the prowess that they had for Acheulean stones, Acheulean two stones on the bones, but they have to understand bone fracture mechanics for this. They have to also understand the animal anatomy and also bone morphology. So they preferred using the limb bones rather than something else. And amongst the bones that they were using, it was the preference was for elephant bones. So you can see that they have a mental template. They want a certain way for the tool to behave for them, to look, to yield, and there is this sense of artifact curation, if you can say that, because stones were all there. Like you can see in this map, it's like a scatter of what they found at the site at one of the trenches. And the bone tool is in green, and maybe it's not too clear, but they're not all over. They're speckled here and there. And stone tools are primarily in the majority, right? But still, they made stuff out of bone. So it's a curious phenomena. Like there's no need, but perhaps they had a different function. Researchers say perhaps it was used for something heavy duty because it had the weight and the length. Now, this is also a very fascinating site. Not directly related to stone tool technology, but perhaps stones were used here. So at Atapuerca in Spain, there are multiple sites here, and the site of Grandolina has provided the evidence of, or the earliest evidence of cannibalism. Now you see this skull here, it is of the species Homo antecessor. So say around 1.3 to million to 800,000. That's the wide range. And here they found at this time period, like this bones are also of the same species, so it's not, interspecies or something. Um, they found these cut marks and pit marks on the bones. And it wasn't few, many bone fragments showing the same evidence. And it's fascinating that Carbonell et al., the research team, they, through all the evidence, and Atapuerca research has been going on for more than 30 years. So their research says that this cannibalism was a subsistence strategy. Um, Doing this was more nutritional than ritualistic. So I find that extremely fascinating. And cannibalism didn't just stop at that, at the Paleolithic. It continued um, for a very long time at this site. Now jumping ahead to 500,000 years, we are talking about hafting. Now, when it comes to innovation um, in stone tool technology, arguably hafting is one of it. And hafting is nothing but, attaching a tool to the end of a shaft or a handle. Now, what the researchers at this site of Kathupan in South Africa have noticed that these stone tools that you see over here had evidence of modification and breakage at the base of these point like artifacts. And according to their study, it reveals that these points were indeed hafted. Now, wooden artifacts have been known um from the Paleolithic context far earlier, right? So we have a site in Israel called GBY. There they found these wooden planks more than 700, 800,000 years ago. Then we have a site at Colombo Falls, which is in Zambia. There they found these logs, which is more than 470,000 years. So it's not like wooden artifacts haven't been part of our Paleolithic trajectory. Of course, because it's a perishable material, it's organic, preservation for the same is difficult. But around 300, 400,000 years, there is direct evidence of these shafts from the site in Germany called Schunengen. And here you can see some are double pointed, some are single pointed, and the preservation is amazing. And this is from a Neanderthal site much later in Italy. So evidence for hafting is there from Neanderthals as well as Homo sapiens. The researchers for this from Katupan say that because both species have this technology and perhaps even more wood, there has to be a common ancestor that came up with this hafting innovation, and it's possibly Homo heidelbergensis over here. Now, again, it's not that fire wasn't known at before 400,000. There are many sites that are present that show evidence of hearths where fire was used. But this discovery at UK at a site called Barnham shows direct and concrete evidence of not just fired sediments, but fired flint handaxes. So, because of the use of fire, there is a way a tool, a raw material would break, and this is not something knapping would produce. So they found this, and they found, along with all this, they found these fragments, and these fragments are called of iron pyrite. Now, I don't know if you've heard of iron pyrite. I think it's called fool's gold also, in some cases. But pyrite was actually used to strike on another piece of stone to, produce a flame. So it's very fascinating that at 400,000 they found concrete evidence. But as I said, there are sites way older. Say in Africa, I think the use of fire goes back to 1.5 million years. And again, the site at GBY also shows at around 0.7 million years, the use of fire. So it's not just that they are using the fire to extend the daylight or they're using the fire just for heat. Here, we find evidence of not just them harnessing the fire, but they have consistently used it. That means they've created fire. It's not accidental. And they have somehow figured out a way through these iron pyrite fragments to maintain it. And evidence of, the firing techniques and at what temperatures the fire went is all preserved at this site, which is very fascinating. Moving ahead, we are now coming to mode 3 of stone tool technology. I hope I have time. Yeah. So again, as we see, it is now spreading even further. There are multiple sites that are showing this sort of technology. And I have written optimization because compared to, say, Aldovan, Lomequin, Acheulean, this technology, which has multiple names depending on who made it, has a concept called the prepared core technology. Now, it means exactly that they're preparing a core first to take out an artifact. Now, you would argue and say that everybody prepares a core, like even Acheulean makers would have done it. Here, what they're doing, if you can see in the um illustration, they'll flake on one of these surfaces. That means they're preparing it. And they'll prepare both convexities, like the top face and the bottom face. And either they'll strike at the end of it to take out a flake. So that's like a preferential thick core. Or they'll use that core multiple times and it becomes recurrent. Now, this talks about predetermination. Yes, you have a mental template, but you're also predetermining not just the flake, but the number of flakes that can come out of it. And you're optimally using the core as opposed to, say, taking one flake out and then discarding the core. Here, one core can give you so much. So it's a volumetric approach. And around this time, as usual, there are many contenders. If it was the Neanderthals, then the technology becomes Mousterian. And so around this time, you have, say, the dragon man from China. You also have a newer species, the Nasher Ramla Homo from Israel. So a lot is going on around the same time. But the technique of producing stone tools around this period deals with this prepared code technology. Now, again, to understand what this technology is, we can go back to the same site of Adarapaka, where again they have found the oldest date of the Middle Paleolithic or Mode 3 technology, and that goes beyond 380,000. This is similar, if not older, than the evidence of Homo sapien fossil coming from Africa, from Morocco. So it is contemporaneous, and here we find many things that are happening. Firstly, we do see that they are reducing the size of artifacts. Now, as you can see, the scale here, 5 centimeters. So, yes, they have remnants of the preceding Acheulean technology, but they're also going away from that large cutting tool scenario and they're trying to make smaller flakes and they've adopted the Levallois or the prepared core technology. And they also see incipient blade reduction. So they're now trying to get some longer flakes. That is evident here. And they say that by 170,000, by the end of the Middle Paleolithic, the bifaces are gone at this site. So these are some of the key features of the site. There are many more. And pushing ahead, we have something called the laminar technology of the Upper Paleolithic. Now, when it comes to India, the terminology Upper Paleolithic is a little elusive, I feel, because technically for the Upper Paleolithic, we don't have dates. As Pat Chauhan also says that there is one site in Pakistan, site 55, and there the dates of 45,000 are coming. But what happens in India is, and this is not from, these artifacts are not from India, but as you can see, these points are using the technology of the preceding culture. using level lower technology to make these points, but are of the upper Paleolithic because you have these blade cores where, blades came out. And what are blades? Blades are, in the traditional sense of the term, it is twice the length as the width, right? So they're just longer. In India, what happens? There's a massive overlap, not just with the preceding technology, which is the Middle Paleolithic, but also the succeeding, which is the microlithic, in a sense. So we have multiple sites in India where, Jwalapuram, Dhaba, Katauti, all these places where they have a Middle Paleolithic technology that goes, into like, say, 30, 40,000 years young. And if we are saying laminal technology starts at 70,000, then what happens here in India? Other confusing part is that this picture that you see here is from a site from called Metakeri. And here it is at 45,000 years, but it is a microblade technology. So they're already going towards the microlithization of artifacts. There are multiple sites which talk about blade technology in India, also bone technology from Kurnool, Patne, and all that, but very few have been dated precisely. But what is important for you to know is that blade technology, like the level up technology, is all about optimally reducing the core. As you can see here, once you have a proper surface to strike at, you can get multiple blades, and you can keep going as long as the core is can produce those platforms. So to understand this better, I'd just like to show you a video, just the manufacturing process.
Stick.
So right now you're seeing the end product of this really long blade, but it took him almost 7 minutes to prepare the core itself to get this sort of a ridge that you see over here. And so preparation of core takes a while for blade technology, but once you do that, there's no stopping you.
So this is the first crested blade.
So he's just preparing the platform. And using different tools to prepare that. So from stone to bone.
Yeah.
And so blade technology like this, from producing such long blades to even shorter ones, you see evidence of this right well into the Harappan period, which is just 4,000 years ago. So it just goes to show how efficient this technology was. But you'll be surprised to know that although I have given that date of 70,000, blade technology has gone back to 500,000 at Kaptharan in Kenya. So it's not just a product of later hominin species, but more research is required as to why it was necessitated, like why the change happened, why the blades came then and then disappeared and then came back again. And finally, I would like to talk about this wonderful discovery happened a few years back at Borneo. This is a cave site called Liang Tebo, and they found this young adult fossil. Um, and they found that his leg was missing, left leg, lower left leg. And they were surprised to note that it wasn't as a result of animal this thing intervention or anything. there was a clear-cut amputation, and it also showed evidence of healing. So this is a wonderful evidence similar to Dmanisi, where um, perhaps he was taken care of because there is no indication of infection. At least that's what the bones say. So it's marvelous to know that even at 31,000 years ago, there was some prehistoric surgeon out there using his stone tools to amputate and, um, decrease the suffering of this person. So as you can see that we barely scratched the surface. Okay, this presentation is more like a primer of sorts, and we just touched upon few key sites, key innovations, just to understand what made us and how we came about to be holding our phones today. Um, there are many ways to understand stone tool technology, and I won't go into the details, but I would like to leave you with this, that stone tools, they are like a snapshot into our prehistory, and they contain so much information um, which we need to decipher. So they are essentially carrying our essence within them, and what we get out of it, it depends on what the archaeologists want us to answer. There's so much you can do. So with that, I hope that now when you look at a stone tool, you just don't see it as an end product, but something that means much more, and how much planning goes into that. And this photo in the background is of a pig, and the painting is more than 45,000 years old, from Indonesia, from Sulawesi. And with that, thank you so much for attending.
Wow, thank you so much, Malavika. I really didn't know the stone technology could have so many layers. I mean, in fact, we just look at it as a stone technology where chipping away things. But over a period of so many thousands of years, they have changed, they have evolved. So there's a lot of evolution process, even in the way that our past, I would say, human forms have used stone for whether it is, I would say protecting themselves, eating something, or just about going about their life. So thank you so much. Wonderful presentation. And though you said it was a primer, if I may use the word, it was really
I
incisive.
wish I could just focus on one technology, one human species, perhaps.
Yeah, there's so many, I would say, different terminologies that I was
Yes,
blown away with, especially the different time periods that you talked about. So thank you very much.
my
I'm
pleasure.
going to see if there are any questions or any comments. So Sandhya says, very fascinating. Thanks a lot. So far, no questions, but I'm open if there's anybody who's.
What's my favorite part? I Actually, that's a great question. Everything fascinates me. I wish we had fossils here in India. There is evidence of one uh, something called the Narmada Man. Part of his cranium was found, but um, unfortunately, DNA testing or dating hasn't been done. So we don't know who this hominin was. Some attribute it to Homo heidelbergensis. And so, yeah, I wish I could study fossils, but everything else is fascinating, especially the field work. I love doing that. Post field work, everything is bad. Statistics, hate it.
So your focus is India, or when you're doing
Yes,
your
yes, of
own work?
course. Yeah, I specialized in an area in northern Karnataka.
Okay.
Yeah, so I specialize here.
Okay.
Some questions are coming in.
Yeah, yeah. Today's machinery and tools evolved from the earlier Stone Age technology, is what Shruti Oak has asked.
Definitely. I mean, there's no direct correlation, of course, and it's way deep in our prehistory. But the acumen that we developed with stone tools, like we were shaping tools, but the tools were shaping us. And so we tend to forget that because with every tool we make, there is also troubleshooting that happens. That goes with anything. Like imagine using a software for the first time and you don't know how to use it. You understand it better with the problems that come across. So definitely what we are a product of our past. There's no denying that. I don't think there's any need to correlate it also. It's not just a conjecture. We have evolved through time, if not linearly, but what we understood about stone tool technology still applies today.
Suddenly, I see a lot of questions. I'm going to go
Yeah.
one by one. Suki's asked, how can lay people contribute? Are you talking
Depends.
contributing to this research, Suki?
You are contributing by being here, by indulging in your curiosity, that too on a Saturday. Because a lot of people who wanted to attend, I was surprised that why would you waste a Saturday on something like this? And they said, why not? And that's exactly it. You are contributing.
There's the fossil park near Dogevira, is what Faridun has asked.
Yes, there are a lot of fossil parks in India in general, especially Gujarat and Madhya Pradesh. But these fossil parks are more paleontological in nature, in the sense that they might have dinosaur fossils, dinosaur eggs. Yeah, so those are fossil parks. But for hominin fossils, not yet. I'm not saying we'll never find them. It's just that preservation conditions in our country are not conducive for that. Yeah,
So, just
not
for
yet.
a layperson's perspective, if you want to put, say, the dinosaurs in the context of what you just shared, what happened?
Nothing. What? If you want,
If you want to put, just in terms of context, the time period context, the
oh,
dinosaurs happened how many
nothing to do
million?
with nothing to do with us at all. They are at a Cretaceous age, like 200, 300 million years ago. So nothing to do with us. But yeah, they're far away from us, yet we find their evidence. It's
Yeah.
fascinating, right? We are the most populated country in the world, yet there's some part of the country that has preserved them. So I find that also fascinating.
Varun has asked which stone tool discovery has most significantly changed our understanding of human evolution.
I think every discovery that is made in this period is significant because you can understand how far back in time it is. And to find something from that period is to find a point in their time, right? So the preservation, it's miraculous that we even get it. And even if it doesn't contribute to something new, it adds to the information that we already have, because for something to survive this long, like now you see how certain things that we have don't even survive a year, right?
True.
But something like that surviving for so long, say wood for instance, surviving this long, I think each and every discovery has its own merit, and we should take it that way. I think for India, definitely the first stone tool that was found by, in Tamil Nadu, I think that definitely changed how we imagined our past.
Vidya says, wonderful session. I think we can do more. And do you have any interesting books to suggest?
Oh yeah, I definitely, there are so many books that as archaeologists and as researchers, we end up reading so much like journal articles that we are very far from, say, reading books on the same. But if you email me, I'll definitely send you a list of books that could get you started in this field. Should I give my email ID over here?
Yeah, please do. Please. In the meantime, I'll read out a question from
Yes,
Ayan.
please.
Was the manufacturing of stone tools a direct catalyst to the discovery of how to make fire, or the fire making part happened much later, till it was figured that a particular type of stone, the pyrites, which produce sparks when struck together? If this was true, then how big was the gap between making stone tools and starting fires deliberately using stones?
Okay, let me just read it once again.
Sure.
To
It's a
manufacture
long
stone
question.
direct catalyst. Uh, okay. Uh, there's no evidence for what you are asking in terms of direct correlation, but definitely so, because I think making fire, I think, was more of a security purpose, a need, and that is, of course, I'm just contemplating here. Fire has been there available in the environment for a while, right? Natural fires, forest fires happen. So hominins are have known something like that to happen. Now harnessing it and realizing what happens as a result of it is the catalyst. So when they realized how to harness it, and it perhaps doesn't have anything to do with stone tool technology rather than manipulation of your natural resources. I think that the what shaped their mindset by making stone tools, I think was applied to manipulate things to harness and maintain fire. I think that's what happened. So if this is true, then how big was the gap between making stone tools and starting fires? So as of now, stone tools came before starting or harnessing fires, because as you saw, stone tools, the technology goes back 3.3 million years, whereas the earliest evidence of fire is around 2. But that doesn't mean that, the date can't go further back. Right now, the evidence says the same.
Suki just added to what she had asked earlier in terms of research and support when you find something, I believe she was looking at how we can contribute.
Ah, fine. I will definitely email her.
Yeah, or maybe somebody who's interested can email you since you've put your
Yes.
email. So Varun saying, what is the most exciting unanswered question in prehistoric archaeology today?
Yeah, as to who made these artifacts. Like prehistoric is a wide range, of course. Paleolithic as to who made these artifacts. And also, um not just who, because we have so many technological overlaps, who came in, who went out, So origin stories and stuff like that is always fascinating. And I think hopefully one day we get to answer those. But it's clear cut. The stone tools are here, the oldest stone tools of India, and also, in terms of being contemporary to Africa, 1.5, 1.7 million years, and even more. They're here. They were made by someone, right? It's just that we don't find evidence of them. And yeah, it'll be nice. It'll be exciting to maybe answer that. Yeah.
Further says, what about the excavation in Tamil Nadu using
Atirampaka,
stone?
yeah.
Yeah,
Yes, I'm
using
assuming
purely
Atirampaka.
stone related
Yeah, all
excavation.
these artifacts, I'm only discussing stone tool technology primarily, and the artifacts found in Atirampakam are made of stone called quartzite, which are naturally available over there.
Okay. AG, I don't know what that long form is. Any interesting find from eastern or northeastern India?
Yes, yes, all the time. It's just that, when it comes to certain regions of the country, preservation, in terms of the vegetation cover, sometimes you can't do field work. There are certain logistical reasons. So in terms of the Paleolithic, at least the lower part of the Paleolithic, early Paleolithic, n nothing yet. But there are always interesting finds coming from there, especially, their Neolithic culture, the Mesolithic culture. It's fascinating what they have.
Sejal says the stone tools that have been found in the Rising Star cave system, how did they get them there and how did they
Yeah,
get
yeah,
fire?
it's very fascinating. I know, like Homo naledi, another hominin species, and there's a lot of controversy regarding that. And a recent find showed that all of them were probably women. So I don't know what's happening there. Some controversial topic. How did they get them there and how did they get fire down there? Very interesting questions, because when modern day cave you know trekkers who do this, they went inside, they found it so difficult at that time. Yes, Homo naledi was obviously a little smaller in stature than us, but not so much. So it'll be fascinating to understand how they got there. As of now, there is no other entrance to the cave except for the one that is visible today. So I am also clueless as to how they reached there. They did traverse the entire cave with a lot of difficulty, and perhaps our definition of difficulty and theirs are totally different, because probably it was a walk in the park for them. Who knows?
I think it's magical that things can survive that long, as you mentioned earlier. Really fascinating. Malvika, of course, you've shared your email, and Aaron is saying, on a lighter note, can this be considered as a first arms race?
Sure, why not? Why not? It depends. All those three words: first, arms, and race. What means what exactly over there? Um, in terms of for say hafting technology, a lot has been associated with that, and projectile technology and whatnot. But yes, on a lighter note, yes, it's the first arms race, if you will, for sure, for sure. I mean, it
Dhruv,
laid the
yeah,
foundations, I guess.
true. Dhruv, do you think, Dhruv's question, do you think because of colonization we lost out on a lot of our history all over the world?
When it comes to say our prehistory and Paleolithic, I think um we didn't lose, we actually gained because through the GSI and ASI and whatnot, this sort of research and field exploration started. So I think it's because of those explorations that we even came to know about, something like this exists. I'm not
Hmm.
saying we didn't know something like this was there. It was just something that, wasn't talked about, I guess, or didn't know the importance about it. And so I think in terms of a prehistory, perhaps not. History for sure. That's a different topic altogether, and I would love to talk about it. But we did lose out on a lot uh, during colonization. But when it comes to our Paleolithic, not so much. I think we gained a lot. Yeah.
Got it. A question from my side, what makes the Indian subcontinent particularly important? If you have to understand it from, for basically understanding global human prehistory and migrations.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good question. And that is something that most of us are, scratching our brains as to because we are at a crossroads when it comes to our position geographically. You'll see, all roads kind of lead to us or from us in a way. And there is
Mm.
evidence all over the world showing, like hominin fossils of this period going back so many million years and everything. Yet we are right at the center without the fossils. So either they cross through South Asia, right? Or, somewhere around our landmass that they crossed around. So for the very long time, there was a southern route of dispersal which has kind of been rejected and all. But um, there's so many sites that show perhaps a different incursion of technology, and certain sites show that primitive or ingenious technology developing at the same time. So there's a lot happening in our country, and I think the resolution of data is getting better and better with the researchers in this field. So in South Asia, it is at a very prominent position because you have the Levant, you have now Southeast Asia, where these dates of cave art is going well beyond 60,000, and now China is you know producing so many fossils, hominin fossils, and showing a different trajectory of technology. So it could be independent development of technology as well as hominin population. So it'll be fascinating to see how the next 10 years of research goes.
Yeah. Just again, in terms of context, the Bhimbetka caves in Madhya Pradesh, where do they fall? Do they,
Yes. So they
the,
have an entire
which time
sequence, and
period?
I wanted to talk about them. So they have from the Acheulean, not maybe as old as 1.5 million, but a little later in that period, till the Upper Paleolithic, microlithic as well. So they have an entire sequence, and because it's a cave, the preservation is much better. So not only will you find art over there, but you'll also find stone tools from the Acheulean. So it's a fascinating site, and one must visit that for sure. Yeah.
Ayan has asked, because stone tools are not organic in matter and can't be carbon dated, how are stone tools dated? Is it based on soil layer where they are found, or other organic matter which is found in them in that same level surrounding the tools?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question. Yes, stone tools, they're not organic, can't be carbon dated. And also, the kind of time period we're looking at is beyond 50,000 or 60,000 years, which is the limit for your carbon dating. So, generally, the stone tools where they found that sediment, like you have mentioned, is dated. And there are lots of ways to date that sediment itself or, the artifact itself. It's just one of those things about funding and who's collaborating with you. um, is it based on soil layer? Not just the layer, the sediment itself. Of course, there's relative chronology. If you find a fossil that has been credibly dated in other parts of the country and the world, then you know that, above and below, whatever, that's relative. But mostly the sediment is dated. There are certain dating techniques where you can actually date the artifact itself. You can you can do paleomagnetism if you want to see the polarity of the earth at the time of the deposition. But you need to have an idea that, your stone tools are that old to be able to give you certain data. So, yeah.
So, how do you archaeologists distinguish between a deliberately made stone tool and a naturally broken
Yeah,
stone?
yeah. So another things I wanted to talk about, but it's more like when you see an artifact, when you see a tool, right? So much has gone to make it the way it looks, right? The end product, right? And when you look at a normal stone lying on the road, there are certain fracture patterns that you will see. For us, we know that, because of experience, of course, we'll know what is not. And don't get me wrong, there are instances where we also don't know what we are looking at. It's that confusing. But sometimes when you look at stones, natural stones, and if you see some sort of a scar on them, either it'll be too shallow, so it means that it just fell and something chipped off, and mostly the point of percussion where something hits the stone is generally 90 degrees, right
Mm.
angle, which is very natural of it to happen. That doesn't mean that non 90-degree percussion doesn't happen, but it's generally 90-degree. And when you look at our like stone tools, the artifacts, you'll always see that it is at a lesser or a more angle, depending on how they mapped it. That is one way of seeing things. Of course, the other thing is context. If there are stone tools in a place, you'll get more of that. You'll get the natural raw material as well, but you'll get more of these shaped, modified tools. So you'll always look at the scar patterns, if there are more than, say, one. And then you can figure out that, okay, something was done to modify it, to shape it, and then you analyze it. You see those features that I talked very briefly on, but there are certain things you see on a core, on a tool, on a waste rig to understand. There are parameters to account for.
And of course, because the tools or the technology has changed, do we can we presume that it's because of the changing climates and the landscapes that
Yes,
happened over a period
great
of time?
question. Great question. I think so. When you look at stone tool technology and why it has, you know, uh, persisted for so long, not only because of this endurable material, the stone, it's because it has survived, right? And when we see this as a chronological marker, sometimes this technological change, which I wanted to highlight through the presentation, these milestones, has happened due to some reason. Why would you want to change something that was perfectly fine, right? So if Alduin, like I said, continued for 300,000 at one side, a Shulin has already started emerging in some other place. So there are a lot of environmental factors that could probably reflect regional impact factors, either, something very regional as there's a drought or, sudden floods. Something happened and it was long term, long duration. Maybe the fauna that was available there suddenly changed, some migration happening through that, the flora changed. So environmental factors definitely
Yeah.
have a role to play in how stone tool technology has changed over the years. But after a point of time, nature wasn't shaping us, we were shaping the nature around us, eventually, when we became like, at the top of the food chain. So all these mile markers as such, uh, went have a key role to play for us to go up at the top of the food chain, where we
Yeah.
finally started um, changing our environment for our purposes. It wasn't the other way around. Yeah.
It's very profound. So great. I think we've finished asking all the questions that have been
Yes.
shared. Well, I think one more has come in from Ivan. Can the making of stone tools can be seen as a precursor to the scientific process or a photoscientific process based on systematic observation of cause and effect, constant experimentation, and transmission of technical knowledge over several generations? He meant
Sure.
proto-scientific.
I mean, that's absolutely fair to assume that, now the reason why I talked about this research by Stout et al. 2008, where they tried to map the brain while someone was napping, and I said the language circuits were firing at that time. There is a relationship to, the persistence of stone tool technology. And it's not just because of stone, it is also the transmission of that knowledge. And it must have happened through some form of language. It might not be, the language that we have now. It might not be grammatical. It might have sounds, might not have sounds, but it was something that developed during that time that helped with, this continuity of stone tool technology. Otherwise, if you're isolated, right, within your circle and within inside that circle, how do you survive? There's no longevity. So stone tool technology, amongst other technologies, say bone tool or wood technology, all of these processes that were happening at the time of our evolution have a lot to do with how the culture and technology was taken from one place to the other and how it was transmitted amongst them. So it is knowledge sharing that we can see from this, and that goes back to 3.3 million years.
Sejan's
Where
question, where
where
can
can
fossils
fossils
be?
be found? Specifically, you want to ask just as an interest, or is it specific like sedimentary deposits you're asking? Because mostly it's the sedimentary deposits where you find these fossils. In India, depends what kind of fossils you want to find, but Spiti Valley is well known for fossil hunters and anybody curious, you get
Did you say
ammonites and they've got
Spiti?
nothing to do.
Did
Huh?
you say Spiti Valley in
Spiti,
North?
Spiti Valley, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Because the Tethys Sea used to be there long time back, long as in eons back. So yeah, so basically it depends on the kind of deposit. You won't find it everywhere, like in Deccan Traps and all. It's volcanic. So in certain regions where you have that sedimentary deposits, you will get fossils because that is more likely to preserve a fossil than say igneous and metamorphic.
Great. Thank you. Thank you so much. I think I don't see more questions coming in. We have also almost
I
come to the
have
end of the
provided my email ID, so if
yes.
anybody wants to reach out,
I think
please do
I
so.
will just post it again so that it's there in the instant feed.
Yeah,
So yeah. So I'm sure more questions can be directed to your email.
absolutely, absolutely. It's my pleasure. And I kind of kept it very basic, but it was nice to present to an audience, a mixed audience, I guess, I suppose, and it gives me a chance to make this whole public outreach that I like doing, make people aware of what we are studying as and specializing in. And it can get boring, so it gives me this opportunity to maybe possibly not just simplify it, but reach out. Like the transmission of knowledge is still happening. Yeah.
It's very important that what you're doing is also reaching out to
Thank you. Thank you.
others. Yeah. AG says, thank you so much for the wonderful session. Vidya shared a heart. So it's been a very fascinating session. Thank you so much,
Thank you
Malvika.
so much.
Thank you for taking time out from your studies.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you and have a
Uh,
wonderful day ahead.
yes.
And thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody. Thank you so much for attending, and thank you, Khaki. See you. Bye.
Bye.